Hey there, and thanks for stopping by to check out my channel. Now here's a video I can already feel many of you prepared to fire away in the comments section down below around how short barrel 6.5 Creedmoors don't make sense. You have to have that 20 to 24 inch barrel out of a 6.5 Creedmoor for it to perform out at distance. Well, what we're going to do in this video is find out exactly how a 22 inch 6.5 Creedmoor gas gun performs side by side with a 16 inch. We're going to take a look at 100-yard performance there at the zero range, get an idea of how they perform on paper for accuracy with 10-round groups, a look at velocity performance using the Barnes 140 grain match burner bullet. Then we're going to move out and shoot steel from 300 out to at least 1,000 yards, and if we're making impacts, we'll push on out further. So the Day Mount facility where I am right now, this is an unbelievable long-range location. They've got a passion for long-range shooting, and they've been very willing to share it with the shooting community. I've now shot 2 matches here, today being the conclusion of my second match with the Hunter match, and the first one being the ELR match I shot a couple of weeks ago that I brought to you in the Arc and Scope in an ELR match video that's doing quite well. I appreciate all the support there from each of you that have watched that video. There's a ton of new subscribers, and I welcome each of you to the channel. I hope you enjoy this kind of content. Now my plan, we're going to move into a gear review. We're going to take an in-depth look at both of these rifles and how they're set up. I tried to make these as comparable as possible so that really the only variable is the barrel length. Now understand, scopes are going to be a little bit different, suppressors are a little bit different, but the spirit here is we're going to be testing barrel length out to distance. We're going to take a look at hit percent. Most importantly, what I'm curious about for the shooting that I like to do is what does the drop look like? How much elevation am I going to have to dial on to get out there to 1,000 yards or 300 yards with each barrel length? What am I doing in wind to make those impacts? Are we going to see any noticeable impact between barrel lengths around my ability to hit targets at distance? Let me know in the comments your thoughts. I can't wait to hear it while I move into the gear review, and then we'll move down to the 100-yard section where we'll take a look at performance. At the end of the video, we're going to meet back here and summarize my experience running each rifle side by side here at the Day Mountain Ranch in Preston, Idaho. How about we take a close-up look at the gear we're going to run in this video. So I've got 2 rifles I've tried to match up as close as I can, shooting the same ammo. For a 16-inch rifle, we're going to be shooting a new rifle to the channel. This is one that I just had built, the upper at least, by SR25 Cartel. This thing is beautiful. I tried to model it after a mini M110 in 6.5 Creedmoor. So what you can see here, the lower is a Knight's Armament SR25 lower with the B5 precision collapsing stock. The upper though, this is what SR25 Cartel put together for me. So I'm using their upper with an LMT MWS bolt carrier group. Then for the barrel, that's going to be the SR25 Cartel 16-inch M110 profile barrel that is dimpled. Beautiful barrel using the SR25 Cartel gas block. And my plan for this actually is to later run the Griffin Armament MGLC suppressor on it to give it that mini M110 look. But for this video, I wanted to run my Knight's Armament CRS PRG suppressor, I believe they're calling it. It's their newer pressure reduction suppressor. This thing, it's mounted on their 3-prong brake. So this can is going to be very similar to the one that I'm running on the 22-inch. That's why I decided to run it in this video. So the coating was done by IA Coatings out of Houston, Texas. They did a beautiful job with the FDE or taupe kind of color on this. This rifle, this upper, turned out really nice. I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited to show it off for the channel. It's a sweet shooter, and you're going to see that. For an optics package, we're going to run the Nightforce 4-20 ATACR using the Trimmer 3 reticle, and it's in the Nightforce mount with their diving board. I can't remember. I believe this is a 0. That might be a 20 MOA mount actually. And then for ammunition, we're going to be running the 140 match burner bullet from Barnes. Barnes actually provided all the bullets that I'm going to be shooting here. Barnes and Sierra have stepped up to support my channel in a huge way. I appreciate their support, and I'm excited to show you the performance of the various Barnes and Sierra bullets that I have. In this case, the 140 match burner, we're going to put it through its paces there, 100-yard groups, and shoot it out to distance, bring you along for that experience. Trigger in this is the Geissele SDE trigger. So twist rate on this, I believe, is 1 in 7.5 or 1 in 7.7. So almost identical to what I'm shooting in the 22-inch upper. So this thing, sweet shooter, can't wait to show you what it's going to do there at the 100-yard line. For the 22-inch upper, we're going to be shooting my factory Knight setup. So this is going to be the Knight's Armament SR25 lower with the B5 precision collapsing stock. And then the upper is going to be a Knight's Armament factory 22-inch 6.5 Creedmoor upper. This upper also is running a dimpled barrel, and I believe this one is 1 and 7.5 inch twist, so almost identical between the two. Just 6 inches more of barrel there. Suppressor on this, as I mentioned, is going to be the Knight's Armament 762 CRS suppressor. This is going to be a little bit more old school than what I'm running here. This is pressure reducing versus this is just old school sealed up can. Trigger in this is also going to be the Geissele SDE. Bipod we're going to run on both rifles will be the MDT Skypod. I love this. The more I've shot this, especially out here at the Day Mountain Ranch where you've got those up elevation, down elevation, I love the ability of this bipod to spread out wide, bring it close together to get that angle that I need to make that shot. Super stable, beautiful bipod. Rear bag's going to be from Fulcrum. Now the optics package that we're going to run on this rifle is going to be the Nightforce 7-35 ATACR with a trimmer 3 reticle. I understand this has more magnification, but aside from maybe 100-yard groups, I don't plan to run more than 20 power on this optic to keep it the same between the two. So 7-35 with a trimmer 3, that's the same reticle between both, and I'm going to try to keep myself limited to 20 power on the top end so that we're apples to apples as much as I can be throughout the course of fire. Also firing that 140 match burner load provided by Barnes. I've hand loaded all of these rounds using that 140 match burner. And my intent with my hand loads, I didn't come in and fine tune and tweak the loads for each of these rifles. We're shooting the same load between both rifles. And in load development, my goal was to get a load that shot decently well out of both rifles, decent velocity, decent accuracy, so that I could come out and create content for you at long range. I don't know about you, but I'd rather spend time here on the range at distance than plinking around at 100 yards tweaking loads. So that's where we're going to be shooting. From here, let's move down to the 100-yard line and let me give you a look at how both rifles are going to perform in terms of accuracy and velocity, and then we'll move out, shoot steel at distance. First up, let's take a look at our performance at the 100-yard line. If you know me, you know I like to get 100 yards right out of the gate to confirm my zero, establish a baseline of accuracy, and determine my velocity, average as well as consistency. And that's exactly what we've done here with the 22-inch upper first and then the 16-inch upper. So this is the paper that I was shooting at the 100-yard line. First up, I fired 10 rounds out of the 22-inch Knight's Armament upper. I fired those 10 rounds on the bottom 2 dots from left to right. So what you see for performance, here on the paper, the first 5 rounds landed right on top of the dot, so really happy with where that zero is at. Pretty tight. Those 5 rounds landed in a group of 1.25 inches, a little bit wide here across the width. Then 10 rounds loaded in the mag. I fired the 5, immediately transitioned to the right dot. So this is a 10-round string split into 2 groups, and fired this group a little bit of diagonal here, 1.1 inches overall. So when I stack these 2 groups on top of each other, you can see it's a pretty nice little group stacked pretty well on top of the 0 dot there. So I'm going to call my 0 on the 22-inch upper good for what we're going to do. For velocity performance, out of the 22-inch upper, we saw an average across 10 rounds of 2670 feet per second with an SD of 14.5. So it's a little bit high on the SD. My goal with this load, again, I'm shooting the 140 match burner. I tried to develop a load that shot decently well out of both uppers to give you a look so that when I shoot both to distance, we're shooting the same ammo as consistent as we can through the testing. So while maybe this isn't exactly the greatest group, it does shoot decently well in both uppers. So for velocity here, 2670 across 10 rounds. Then I swapped over to the 16-inch upper and fired on the top 2 dots, again starting on the left-hand dot and then immediately transitioning to the right-hand dot with rounds 6 through 10. So what you see there for accuracy, the first 5 rounds are actually quite good. They're landing in this group right here. This low left was my first round, which originally I felt like was a flyer, but we'll talk about that in just a second. So 5 rounds right here went into 1 inch, so a nice group right out of the gate. Then I transitioned over and fired these 5 rounds right here. The 4 were going really well, and then boom, my 5th shot landed, flew high and right. Not happy with that. I don't know, it felt like a good shot. Overall, my group diagonally measures 1.5 inches. So between the two, we have a 1-inch group and a 1.5-inch group. I took this group and put it over here with these dots, and you can see when you look at kind of the bulk or the center of this group, I need to come probably up 1/10 and right 1/10. So I'm going to make that adjustment before we push out to distance. For velocity performance, out of the 16-inch upper, shooting that same 140 match burner load, we're at 2480 feet per second with an SD of 7.5. So it seems like maybe this rifle likes that load a little bit better. But you can see we're almost 200 feet per second slower with the same bullet, same powder charge, everything the same, losing 6 inches of barrel length there. Accuracy-wise, I don't know. You got to tell me in the comments What do you see here? My opinion, it's not enough difference to say one barrel is more accurate than the other. I feel like me as the shooter, I probably could have done a little bit better. I feel like if there was a flyer on this paper, it's probably this upper right round because it's kind of an outlier from where everything else is in this group. But ultimately, it is what it is on paper. From here, let's push out on steel and see how these compare out to distance. So Day Mountain has a pretty epic zero range with steel from 200 yards all the way out to 1,300. So here at the zero range, why don't we just hit 300, 500, and 600 really quick with the 16-inch, and then the 22-inch just to compare what drop looks like and hit percent. So we've got the shade coming in. It's super calm out here right now. I'm going to start with maybe just a left edge favor. There's a little bit of a left to right out there, but let's see if we can connect. So 16-inch rifle, 300 yards. Ooh, drop my bottle. There we go, 300's calling for 1.3, and we'll shoot that little circle. Scope is set to 11 power. Okay. A lot of swing in that plate. All right, let's go to 500, which is going to be more up the hill. Ooh. We're getting quite the elevation gain here in the targets. Let's see if we can hit that circle. We're calling for 3.2. Off the right edge. Good impact. Left edge. Impact. Impact. We'll go to 6. 6 is calling for 4.3. That's even further up the hill. 4.3, and we are favoring left. Let's go left to the 4-mile-an-hour dot. Square plate. Impact. 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 So no problem with a 16-inch rifle out to 600 yards. And those are not big targets by any means. Let's swap over to the 22-inch and see how it fares. Same course of fire with the 22-inch, 300, 500, and 600. So my 300-yard hold is 1 mil with this 22-inch barrel. See where we're at. Impact. Still a lot of swing there, huh? Impact. All right, that's enough at 300. I believe 500 was supposed to be 2.7. Just off the left. Scope is set to 11 power. Impact. Impact. Ooh, that's hot. Impact. Now let's go up to 600. And we're calling for 3.2. Favor left to the 4-mile-an-hour dot. No call. And no splash. Too much wind, huh? Oh, maybe not enough. There we go on the left edge. So a little bit different wind. Impact. Let's load up a couple more for 600. Seems like maybe a little bit of windage there. It's really hard to spot that with no backstop behind the target. All right, here we go. 3.2, left edge. Packed. Really hard where I can't see those impacts. Man, that's tough shooting. Let's just go dead on. Dead on at 3.2. No. So I feel like 600 yards was really a chip shot with either rifle. With that, the Day Mountain crew has given us access up here to the tower area where we can shoot in more natural terrain at much further distances. I've got a 2/3 IPSC out there at 940 yards. We'll shoot with both rifles. 16-incher is calling for 9 mils of elevation with the 140 match burner. And there is a slight left to right. So I'm going to start like 1 mil left. Okay, so that was, let's come down a tenth. And we'll go 1.2 on the wind. Feel like that dropped low. Impact. 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 So there's 3 impacts at 8.9 mils. Now I've got some other targets we can shoot here a little bit further. We go way up. So we have a diamond out here at 1,250 yards. That's way too tall. Or is it? Okay, 1,250. Yeah, it's too tall. Let's just make sure we're on the bottom one. Yeah, that's the right one. So 1,250. Ooh, I'm going to need more bipod. 14.2. Scope is set to 20 power, by the way. Okay. All right, there we go. You can see shooting in natural terrain is a little bit tough getting set for the shot. Now we were at 1.2 for 940. Let's go like 1.6. Okay, just below the tip. Let's come up 3/10. Windage look good. Impact, you can see the light. Impact, you can see the light. Impact. So that's 3 in a row, 1,250 yards with a 16-inch 6.5 Creedmoor running a 140 match burner at only 2480 feet per second. Now let's swap over to the 22-inch and see how it fares. Let's repeat the course of fire with the 22-inch, shooting the same 140 match burner load. The 940-yard target is calling for 7.5 mils. Okay. Ooh, we're not even close. 7.5, and we will start left, that same 1.2. Just low and left, let's come up 1/10. We'll go to 1 mil. Impact. Impact. The right edge. Low. Impact. So I'm up at 7.6 for 940. Let's move over to 1255, which is calling for 12.1, but let's go to 12.2. Need more elevation. Or actually, I need to swing that leg in. There we go. Ooh. There we go. And we were at like 1.6. Let's go 1.4. Impact, first round. Impact. Impact. So that's 3 in a row, 1,255 yards. And we have dialed up 12.2 mils, holding probably just a little bit less wind than the 16-inch barrel. I cannot wait to hear in the comments your thoughts around how both of these performed at 1,255 yards with that 140 match burner load. Let's wrap up. And there you have it, a side-by-side comparison of a 16-inch 6.5 Creedmoor beside a 22-inch 6.5 Creedmoor. Now you've got to let me know in the comments down below What did you see performance-wise out of both packages? Did we validate the claims that a 6.5 Creedmoor has to have that long barrel, that 22 or 24 inch barrel to really perform out at distance? Or did I maybe change your opinion a little bit and show you that a 16 inch 6.5 Creedmoor really does have a place? Let me know down below. I love chatting with each of you that engage with the video, and I cannot wait to hear your thoughts. While you're doing that, let's run through my experience running both rifles out to 1,255 yards. So out of the gate, we moved down to the 100-yard line where we shot both rifles on paper to establish a baseline of accuracy and velocity performance. Now what you saw out of both rifles shooting the 140 grain match burner bullet from Barnes was what I would call acceptable accuracy for an autoloader. Now keep in mind, this load with 140 match burner, I didn't go out and fine-tune, tweak it for each rifle. I worked in load development to get a load that I felt like shot decent out of both rifles so that I could come out and film this content with a load that performed well. So with a 22-inch rifle, through 10 rounds, we saw a group that I feel like measured 10 rounds in that 1.1 to 1.2 inch range. Probably could do a little bit better. Shooting off of concrete's a little bit challenging, but it is what it is, just a little bit over 1 MOA. Average velocity of 2670 feet per second. So moving pretty good, but I've seen factory loads with a 140 run a little bit faster. So it's a little bit slow for the hand loads, but velocity performance was there. I felt like acceptable with an SD of something like 14 in that string of fire. For the 16-inch rifle there at the 100-yard line, my first 5 rounds went into a beautiful 1-inch group. With the next 5, 4 of those went into a nice group, with one that flew a little bit high to a 1.5-inch group. So overall, I'd say the accuracy of this rifle with this load off that concrete was in that 1.5-inch range if you measure the group in total. 9 of those rounds probably stacked into 1.1 to 1.2 inches, so very acceptable accuracy. Velocity performance out of the 16-inch barrel with that 140 match burner load, same thing as the 22-inch, was 2480 feet per second. So with 6 inches less barrel, we saw almost 200 feet per second reduction in velocity. Velocity consistency was a little bit better there with an SD of something like 7.5, so quite nice actually for consistency for each of those rounds coming out of the barrel. So the big thing I noticed there at the 100-yard line, accuracy, I feel like the difference was negligible. It was down to me as the shooter, but I saw almost 200 feet per second less velocity with the 16-inch barrel. Again, the hand loads are running a little bit slow. I've seen factory loads run faster out of this rifle. I'm not out here to chase velocity. I'm here to chase loads that shoot decently well so I can create content and give you an idea of performance. From there, we moved out and shot steel at 3, 5, and 600 yards, and we saw a little bit of a difference right there out of the gate at 300 yards. The 22-inch rifle shot 1 mil to 300 yards, something like 2.7 mils to 500. And I had a little bit of a mistake on my part there at the 600-yard line. I realized it when I was laying in the cabin last night, but I was holding 3.2 mils at 600 yards, and I was missing. They were going into that tree. I couldn't see where they were going that well. Couldn't really correct. What I realized when I was laying in the cabin going to sleep is I needed to be holding 3.6. So I got kind of mixed up in my data, and that explains why no matter what I changed for windage, I wasn't connecting. So you saw quite a few misses at the 600-yard line out of the 22-inch upper. I don't feel like that was the rifle. I feel like that was me being dumb and not remembering the correct data. The 16-inch rifle, 1.3 to 300, something like 3.2 to 500, and something like 4.3 out to 600. So what I saw at 600 yards with this rifle was very consistent performance. That plate, I don't know, maybe 12 by 12. It's a decent sized plate, but very consistent accuracy out to 600 yards. And we saw a velocity or a drop advantage to the 22-inch right out of the gate at 300. So from 300 out to 600, we were from 0.3 mils up to 0.7 mils flatter shooting with the 22-inch. That's to be expected with almost 200 feet per second. Because we were connecting well there at 600 yards, I moved on out to steel here. 940, we had a 2/3 IPSC out there. Connected with this rifle, the 16-inch, something like 8.9 mils, and we were holding 1.3 mils-ish of wind to the left to connect there. And then at 1,255 yards, we had that diamond where I was connecting at 14.5 mils. And wind, I was in the ballpark of like 1.5 to 1.6 left. Actually, it was quite consistent performance there at 1,255 yards on a diamond that's pretty reasonable size. The last time I shot that diamond actually was in the ELR match with my 338 Norma barrel out of the MRAD. So that's actually a match target that we shot in an ELR match that I just engaged with a 16-inch 6.5 Creedmoor with quite a bit of consistency. I was really impressed with the performance of the 16-inch and that 140 match burner even running as slow as it is out to 1,255 yards. The 22-inch, we saw it engage the 940-yard target, something like 7.6 mils. So about 1.3 mils flatter to 940. And then at 1255, we were like 12.2 mils. So 2.3 mils flatter. And this rifle, right out of the gate, man, we connected out there at 1255. I think we went 3 for 3 actually. Really impressive consistency out of this rifle, 1,255 yards. That was a ton of fun. Definitely flatter shooting to the tune of 2.3 mils out there. A little bit less wind, something like 1.4 mils. But really, I was impressed with the consistency and the performance of both rifles at 1,255 yards. Probably could shoot a little bit further with that 140 match burner, but really we're running out of light and I need to get this conclusion and intro filmed to bring the content to you. So really happy with both rifles. Let me know in the comments, what did you see for performance out of both of those? Now, as a summary of my experience, what did I think about shooting both rifles? I felt like both rifles shot well, performed well out to distance, as I've said. I like the idea of a 16-inch rifle, especially with a suppressor on it, because it's just a much handier package. Also, I love the way this rifle looks. I put this rifle together to be kind of a mini M110 feel, and I love shooting it. This SR25 cartel upper with the SR25 cartel barrel, it's a sweet shooter, man. It pairs quite well with that 140 match burner. So you've got consistent performance easily out to 1,000 yards with a 16-inch barrel. Now certainly the 22-inch, that's going to allow me to push further and really push the boundaries on what a 6.5 Creedmoor is capable of. So if you're trying to shoot those extreme distances with a 6.5 Creedmoor, yep, your longer barrel is going to do it more efficiently. Less drop, more velocity, harder hitting, all those advantages. But if you're just out here to plink targets like myself, or maybe you're limited to 800 yards or 600 yards, I'd be asking myself, what does a long barrel truly gain me when a 16-inch likely can do the job? So in conclusion, if I had to choose one of these rifles for shooting out to 800 or 1,000 yards, I'm going with the 16-inch every time. Love the way that rifle shoots, a ton of consistency there, it's a ton of fun. And I really enjoy shooting that rifle. I don't feel like someone always mentions the suppressors. This is a Knights Armament CRS suppressor. This is a Knights Armament PRG CRS suppressor. So I feel like they're quite similar suppressors. They're similar size. I don't feel like there's a huge difference there in what the suppressors are doing to the performance of either rifle. So I feel like the data that we saw out here was truly representative of the barrel lengths, given we're shooting the same load, same suppressors, similar scopes. Performance speaks for itself. So let me know in the comments down below. Now, if you like this kind of content, let me know. If you've made it this far, I want to ask you to help me grow this channel. I've seen a ton of growth recently, and I appreciate each of you that have helped me grow this channel. It's really easy. Like this video, comment down below. I love engaging with each of you, but most impactful would be subscribe so that you're in line for my next video drop. If you love long-range content, you're going to love my channel because I am delivering that content as frequently as I can. I'm trying to create content and get it out there on a regular basis. I work a full-time job, so I'm trying to get a couple of videos a month, and if you subscribe, you'll be in line to see each of those. So from here, I appreciate you taking the time to watch, and I hope you'll join me in my next video.